Hey everybody, Tony D with a hot take by request. Someone asked me to do a hot take about the Chinese consulate in Houston. Yeah, things are getting dicey with the Chinese government. The commies, newsflash, are spying on us. Always have been. Countries spy on other countries all the time. And a lot of it's run out of their consulates or embassies, whatever you want to call them. For some reason in the United States, we seem to have a consulate in like every major American city. I guess it's because our country's so big, and we do have quite a few tourists, and to a certain extent, it's needed. You know, if a tourist from another country gets into trouble, you want to have, you don't want to have to fly all the way to New York from, say, I don't know, Kansas City. You want to be able to go to the consulate in Kansas City from your country, right? So I'm sure the Chinese have consulates in every major city, and because they're a communist government, I'm sure every single one of them is a spy operation. Let's be honest. The only question is how much the U.S. government will allow them to spy. Now, the Chinese, being communists, have of course taken it way too far. And now that we're kind of in a simmering Cold War with them, Trump just laid down the hammer and closed the consulate and gave the Chinese spies there 72 hours to vacate. So what did they do? They went out into, I guess, a parking lot or a back area of the consulate and started burning papers in an oil drum. Those guys must have a ton of stuff that they need to get rid of. And they better get out of there, because I'll tell you, the FBI is ready to arrest these guys. There was also another arrest, I believe, in San Francisco of a potential Chinese spy, and she's been caught with stuff. Remember, Dianne Feinstein, Democrat who's on the House Services Committee? She's on a very important committee, a couple anyway. She had a Chinese chauffeur who turned out to be a spy, was spying on her for like 20 years. So, the Chinese, they're very patient people. So that, is a perfect sort of in. You got a guy in a spot that long, he's almost above reproach. When you have a driver for 20 years, you don't suspect him. And think about all the things he would have overheard over the years. Because as you get used to people, Dianne Feinstein's going to slowly lower her guard a little bit more. Oh, I probably shouldn't have talked about that in the limo, but he's not paying attention, right? He's been my driver for all these years. I'm sure he's fine. That's the problem. So Lord knows what secrets Dianne babbled to the Chinese, but he was caught a few years ago, and I don't know if he was deported or what, but really, senator and senators and congressmen really ought to vet your people a little better than that. So yeah, getting back to the Chinese consulate, it's a good move. It shakes things up. It sticks a finger in the eye of the Chinese Communist government, throws all their obviously it's thrown all their operations into chaos if they had to run out into the parking lot and start burning stuff. Obviously, Trump hit a nerve with them. And Tim Pool was doing a piece on this earlier, and he was pointing out, the Chinese, they threatened this after this, and they threatened this after this, and they threatened this after this. Thing about the Chinese government, or any government that's not the United States, when you get threatened as the United States, so what? We're the United States, baby. Most of these other countries can go pound sand. What are they going to do? Start a war with us? That wouldn't be very smart. Chinese, the reason they shout and scream and cry is what a lot of countries do. When you're a dictatorship or a near dictatorship or a terrible communist fascist dictatorship like the Chinese, you have to do that because you have to beat your chest and show how strong you are in front of your own people. That's for the folks at home. It's not really for us. The Chinese government threatens us, and it's like here, it's like, who cares? Who cares? You'd have to be an idiot to be worried about that. The Chinese aren't going to launch their missiles. Half of them won't work, and we'd obliterate them. And we'd probably come out of it, It would be almost survivable against the Chinese. The Chinese, and they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. They're not stupid. They don't want to die. They do it because they have to. They've now pushed their luck. You know, they were very sort of under the radar, flying very low, but slowly they ramp things up, and now, you know, they're getting pounded by Trump, and they hate Trump. They hate Trump so much it actually came out on Chinese television, Chinese state media, that they are using the beer virus against Trump to hurt him. They actually admitted that on live television. Now, that's not really an admission that, you know, the beer virus was created by them specifically for that purpose. I don't think anyone believes that, but, you know, people who are dynamic enough to take advantage of situations, and I think the Chinese were in this particular case, you know, they can seize the moment. You know, the instinct might have been, hey, let's tell everybody this virus escaped and, you know, try to mitigate the damage. But, you know, somebody in the Chinese government was savvy enough to go, wait a minute, maybe we don't want to do that. You know, looking at how contagious this is, maybe this will hurt the world more than it'll hurt us. Yeah, we'll lose a lot of people, but we can afford to lose people. We're China. We got too many people here anyway. Maybe we let this run a little rampant and take the world by surprise. Maybe we'll come up with the vaccine first and tell everybody else they got to pay us big money to get it. Who knows what they were thinking, but the sad truth is the virus did probably hurt the rest of the world more than it hurt China in the short term. It's the long term that the Chinese are probably going to be hurting. Now, Trump is trying to pull us away from China. I think that's a good thing. I think it would be great if we made peace with the Russians, because the Russians and the United States teamed up, we could roll over the Chinese. Chinese, might as well just pack it in, call it a day. If we made peace with the Russians and started using their resources and developing their country into a third, from a second-rate power into somebody, you know, a country that had, you know, a great service industry like we have here. I mean, you're talking a lot of money. There's a lot of undeveloped real estate in Russia. Imagine we cut a deal with Russia and it becomes the vacation center of the world, right? So you go to Russia for these great resorts, and it's expensive to fly there, but the resorts themselves are dirt cheap, and you know, they've got the same thing every other resort has, but you know, they're more modern because they're new. Maybe they're more exciting. Maybe they got gambling. I think they have prostitution in Russia. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, prostitution's not considered a negative. You know, the prostitutes in Russia have more of a status in Russia. It's not necessarily looked frowned upon there, if I'm not mistaken. So you're talking maybe Russia becomes the Vegas of Asia. Think about that. That could work. It could work. China maybe goes to hell in a handbasket in the meantime. I mean, they got tons of land in Russia. They could build factories. They have tons of people. You know, and now I'm not suggesting they would have the same labor rates as, say, China, which, you know, slave wages, no good, but they might have lower wages, so you could outsource certain things. And I don't think we should outsource everything, but maybe you outsource certain things to Russia, and you can sort of mitigate the pull away from China, from the Chinese factories, and come to sort of a halfway compromise where some of our stuff's made in a place like Russia and places like India, And then maybe some of the stuff is made in the United States, some of the important things, or some of the finishing things, like when they assemble cars here. Oh, excuse me. Just a thought. But when it comes to the Chinese, you know, they got a lot to answer for. And I don't know if Biden wants to go down that road, because classically the Chinese have donated to the Democratic Party. In fact, there was a major scandal during the Clinton-Gore era that the Chinese government donated a lot of money. I believe it was to the Gore campaign, and they had to give the money back. But they didn't make a big deal about it at the time, which was weird. Maybe because there was too much money exchanging hands between the United States and China, and they didn't want to wreck the deal, and there's too many Chinese shills in the U.S. government. And now it's time to sort of break that seal, if you will, between us and the Chinese. Maybe mix things up a bit. Who knows? Maybe the Chinese will have a shakeup and they won't be such an oppressive regime anymore. I kind of doubt it. Things are kind of nasty in China with the Uyghurs. Look that up. But overall, I would say the consulate move in Houston is a good one. I look forward to Trump shutting down more of their consulates, because if they're just going to use them as spy factories, then we really have to keep tabs on some of the Chinese government officials who come here and some of their minions, because the Chinese steal a lot from us, and it's high time we put the brakes on that. At least make them earn their keep, so to speak, in the spy game.